Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today because we are jumping right into the ultimate ancient cold case. I want you to start by picturing something with me. Imagine, if you will, walking through a vast, unforgiving desert in the Sindh province of modern-day Pakistan. The sun is just relentlessly beating down overhead. The wind is whipping blinding dust across this endless, empty landscape. It's barren, it's quiet, and it literally looks untouched by human history. But then, the ground shifts.
You stumble upon something that honestly just shouldn't exist. Right there, half buried in the dust, you discover the ruins of a massive, sprawling metropolis. We are talking hundreds of acres of urban center, built with a level of precision that totally defies logic. But here's the kicker, the thing that makes this a true historical mystery. There are no clear records of who built the place. If you look at ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, you see giant statues of kings demanding your worship or massive temples erected to specific gods. Here, there's no known king. There are no final, desperate messages left scrawled on the walls explaining what happened to everyone. Just abandoned, perfectly straight streets, sophisticated brickwork, and massive unanswered questions. This is the story of the ancient Indus Valley Civilization, and specifically, its absolute crown jewel.
Okay, let's dive right into this. It is completely mind-bending to realize that this highly advanced city, with its incredible engineering, was built an astonishing 4,000 years ago. 4 millennia. To put that into perspective, while a lot of the world was still just trying to figure out early, scattered farming villages, the Indus Valley Civilization was thriving. It stretched across a massive area of present-day India and Pakistan, far larger than the territories controlled by ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia at the time. Over 1 million people lived within this civilization's reach, making it one of the absolute largest, most complex, and yet least understood civilizations of the ancient world.
To really map this out, notice just how early this story starts. Around 2600 BCE, this civilization was booming, just humming with life, innovation, and international commerce. It held strong and maintained an incredibly stable society for centuries. But then, roughly 1900 BCE, a slow, mysterious decline begins. The cities start to empty out, and then nothing. The entire metropolis is swallowed by the earth, completely forgotten by human memory. No Greek historians wrote about it, no ancient Roman scholars debated it. It wasn't until the 1920s CE, the 1920s, that archaeologists finally began uncovering these ruins. That discovery completely shocked the global establishment and literally rewrote the history books, proving that highly advanced, sophisticated urban societies existed in South Asia way earlier than anyone had realized.
The most famous and probably the most spectacular of these excavated sites is Mohenjo-daro, which translates to a rather haunting name, Mound of the Dead. But I want you to look past that dark title for a second. Long before it became a silent ruin hidden beneath layers of earth, this was a vibrant, buzzing metropolis. If you woke up in Mohenjo-daro 4,000 years ago, the streets would already be busy with upwards of 40,000 residents. You'd see traders hauling lapis lazuli, cotton, and copper from distant lands. You'd hear potters shaping clay, beadmakers crafting intricate jewelry, and children running through the narrow lanes playing with little terracotta toys. It was a place of immense life, artistic expression, and profound prosperity.
Section 1. Masterpiece of Urban Planning. Engineering centuries ahead of its time.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how far ahead of the curve they were. Unlike a lot of ancient settlements that just sort of grew randomly over time, twisting and turning, building by building, Mohenjo-daro was carefully, mathematically planned from the absolute start. Roads intersected at perfect right angles, creating a grid system that honestly rivals modern cities like New York or Chicago. They used millions of baked bricks, all incredibly standardized to a precise 4:2:1 ratio. But perhaps most astonishingly, they prioritized public health. They built sophisticated subterranean drainage systems running right beneath the streets to carry away waste. Furthermore, many individual multi-story homes featured their own private wells, indoor plumbing, and bathrooms. They even had a massive public pool we call the Great Bath, perfectly waterproofed with natural tar. For a civilization existing thousands of years ago, this level of infrastructure completely defies our expectations.
This whole setup becomes even more striking when we compare it to typical ancient cities of the same era. Usually, in other parts of the world, you see random sprawling growth totally dominated by massive royal palaces. You see massive monuments built by egomaniacal rulers meant to intimidate the populace and glorify warfare. But Mohenjo-daro is different. You see organized grids. You see a massive investment in advanced plumbing and public sanitation rather than giant tombs. And crucially, there are absolutely no massive palaces, no royal decrees, and no obvious kings dominating the archaeological record. We don't find hordes of weapons or glorious depictions of battle either. It was an incredibly complex society, part of a massive trade network exchanging ideas over vast distances, yet it functioned without the typical tyrannical hierarchy and militarism we see almost everywhere else in the ancient world.
But here is where the frustration really sets in for historians and linguists alike. Despite leaving behind incredible artifacts, intricately carved seals featuring unicorns and bulls, standardized weights for fair trading, finely crafted jewelry, they also left behind hundreds of unique written symbols. And despite the absolute best efforts of modern scholars, cryptographers, and even powerful AI computers, there are zero translations. No one has fully deciphered their writing system. Because the inscriptions are usually very short, often just 5 or 6 characters on a tiny stamp seal, we lack a Rosetta Stone to help decode them. Their language remains entirely unread. It is literally as if an entire civilization left behind a massive library of messages, names, and ideas, and modern humanity is simply blind to it. We just can't hear their internal world at all.
Section 2. Theories of the Fall. Investigating an ancient cold case.
I want you to use your deductive reasoning with me for a second here. What could possibly cause such a powerful, remarkably well-engineered civilization to just fade away? We know it wasn't an overnight apocalyptic collapse, because the archaeological evidence actually points to a slow, agonizing deterioration. Slowly at first, almost unnoticed, the quality of life began to decline. We see evidence that their famous pristine drainage systems became clogged up and were no longer repaired. Grand, spacious homes were haphazardly subdivided into smaller, cramped living spaces. Street boundaries were encroached upon. Trade with distant lands weakened and eventually stopped. The once thriving, meticulously clean urban center just grew quieter, dirtier, and less populated over several generations.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what didn't happen. For many years, early 20th century historians clung to a very simple, highly dramatic theory. A powerful chariot-riding outside force attacked, the cities fell in a bloody massacre, and the civilization ended. Early excavators even pointed to a group of skeletons found in the streets as proof of a final slaughter. But actually, scratch that. Modern, rigorous scientific evidence does not support this at all. Forensic anthropology proved those skeletons belonged to people who died at completely different times, mostly from diseases like malaria, not from weapons. Archaeologists have found little to no proof of a massive conquest. There are no widespread signs of burning or destruction, and absolutely no evidence of a final catastrophic battle. So we can confidently cross violent foreign invaders off our list of primary suspects.
So let's move forward and see how the surrounding environment builds a much more compelling, albeit tragic picture. The answer likely lies in nature itself. Let's walk through the leading natural suspects. First up, shifting rivers. Ancient civilizations depended entirely on predictable river systems. Scientists suggest that tectonic activity in the Himalayas may have caused crucial rivers, like the mighty Sarasvati, to change course or dry up completely. Without reliable water, agriculture suffers instantly, and without agriculture, massive cities simply starve. There's also evidence Mohenjo-daro was damaged by repeated devastating flooding from the Indus River. We can literally see massive brick platforms they built trying to raise their homes above the floodwaters. Every disaster forced residents to expend immense energy to rebuild, until eventually recovery was just economically impossible. Finally, consider severe climate change. Evidence from stalagmites in nearby caves suggests that the monsoon cycle weakened significantly. Prolonged, generation-long droughts followed, turning a prosperous, fertile environment into a hostile dust bowl that simply couldn't support a dense urban population anymore, forcing mass migrations away from the city.
So the crucial point is simple but profound. No civilization is permanent. No society is immune to change. We so often look at history through the lens of human conflict, kings conquering kings, empires defeating empires. But the story of Mohenjo-daro is a sobering reminder that even the most advanced, beautifully engineered, and remarkably peaceful societies can be slowly, methodically erased. They had mastered water, they had mastered urban planning, yet they were ultimately dismantled by the relentless, reshaping forces of nature, shifting climates, and the unforgiving passage of time.
Thousands of years later, these remarkable ruins still stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten, glorious age. Their incredibly advanced, meticulously planned streets remain empty, slowly weathering under the exact same sun that baked their bricks all those millennia ago. Their language remains a perfectly locked puzzle. As modern excavations continue to reveal new clues layer by layer, and as new technologies give us hope for finally decoding their script, it leaves us with one final lingering question. Will we ever truly understand their final message?
Until those symbols are finally translated, the greatest secrets, the actual thoughts and voices of Mohenjo-daro, will remain right where they are, buried beneath the sands of history. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.